Productions Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and we're very pleased to welcome tonight as our guest a man who has had a very extensive career, literally wrestled all over the world. I could name the countries, and comes from a lineage of true wrestling royalty. I am, of course, speaking of the one and only Lloyd anoa'i. Before we get to Lloyd, I have to, of course, as I always do at this juncture, introduce the man whose show this is, Mr. Cheap Pete himself, Morris Shorthall. Morris, how are you tonight, sir?
Absolutely brilliant. Thanks a million to you, Lloyd, for joining us, and looking forward to kicking into this.
Thank you for having me. Yes, let's do it.
So, Lloyd, I just thought I'd start off by asking, the one of the more obvious questions, but that is what was it like growing up in such a legendary pro wrestling centric family?
I get this question a lot, and every time it's a little bit different because I don't know. It was just normal for me as being a young kid, being around my dad and my uncle and my brothers and cousins, and it was just normal for me. But when everybody got into the limelight, like working for WWF and, stuff like that, it became a little bit more reality because now people knew not just my dad and uncle, but had more of us coming into the business. So that made it a little more interesting to the people to see, wow, there's more than just two Samoans or three Samoans. There's quite a bit of us. So it got pretty exciting after a while.
Mm-hmm. Lloyd, a couple of weeks back, obviously, two men you know very well, two relatives of yours, The Rock and Roman Reigns, were having that big WrestleMania press conference where they unveiled the family tree. And of course, you were a part of that. What was it like to have that out there for your family to kind of see at such a grand stage like that? Did it make you feel proud?
Absolutely. First of all, when The Rock was saying that, he was going to show the people something, and whether they hated him or they liked him or they hated him, and, the speech that he did, and then all of a sudden the screen came on and, it had our family tree on there. It was really an honor. And it was great to see it because now people see actually how big our family is in the wrestling, industry.
Are you disappointed in any way, Lloyd, that The Rock and Roman is seemingly been dropped from WrestleMania as it currently stands?
With them wrestling against each other, not really. I mean, I guess Rock has to do what he has to do, and I believe the people didn't like when he came into the situation between him and Roman and Cody Rhodes. So that became an issue right there. But I think they're going a great route with it, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Lloyd, could you just to educate some of the younger fans out there, tell the story? Actually, it's not a story. It's taken on a legendary status about how Alpha and Sika were brought into the wrestling business in San Francisco back in the day?
Well, my dad and my uncle and our family used to go watch our uncle High Chief Peter Maivia wrestle, and there was times where he would wrestle against so many of the wrestlers, like Pat Patterson, for example. That was a great one because Pat even told this story, God rest his soul. He would say that he used to love wrestling Peter Maivia, but he hated, especially in Cow Palace. And, my dad and my uncle would actually just, get involved. They seen him getting, behind what. So they would actually, jump in and fight with the security guards to get in there because, Samoans, we stick together, especially blood, they see that. So it was interesting. And then, I believe my dad was telling me years ago that Captain Lou Albano and, which through Captain Lou Albano, Andre the Giant, and my uncle Peter Maivia was like, these guys are too damn big to do anything else. Why don't they get in the business? And then my dad actually started in the business first, and then he trained my uncle, and then that's when they went on the road, and they had so many names as the Islanders, Often Sika, and then they just the Wild Samoans, but then when they went to WWF, they stayed with Often Sika, the Wild Samoans.
Yeah, I remember Pat talking about that story several times, and I guess everyone they're just got tired of being beaten up by them and said these guys are naturals for the business. So you don't see that among
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Actually, Pat told that story at Rocky's funeral. He was telling some stories, and he added that in there, which was always a classic.
Mhm.
We're kind of jumping back and forward here at the moment because with the 40-minute time zone, Jack's jumping into the past. I'm jumping potentially into the future. But I was reading a news article recently said that you would be interested in returning to WWE in some kind of capacity. Is that still on the table, or is there anything you're kind of looking at in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, let's correct that because people write stories and they put certain things in there. I did actually was gonna start with the company a while ago before Johnny Ace was gone because I talked to him, went down there, met with him in Philadelphia, and he was going to put me to work. Then all of a sudden they had that budget cut. So then I got the call, said, we have to wait, give me 6 months, and we'll get you in here, start it. So that went through, and then after the budget cut, of course, the things that happened with the situation with Vince McMahon, and then putting Johnny Ace involved in it, and then he was gone, so it was like it was a blind spot. So what do we do next? He's not the person. He was the one that was actually hiring me and put me to work. Then now I have to start over again. So I've been talking to them again, and hopefully I can get through and go back to work. And I want to go back as a producer type because I feel that I can give my knowledge and help in any way for the company. Since all of our family has been wrestling for the company, and we have such a great relationship with the WWE. I think that it would be something I can give back. Because my wrestling days, I'm still wrestling, but I really don't want to do it anymore if I don't have to. If I can go in there and give my knowledge and, like I said, to help producing and doing the matches, that's something I would like to do.
Was that the initial role, sorry, Jack, that Johnny had in mind for you as well, or is this something that you want to do yourself?
Well, that was something that he had in mind, but once you're in there, you never know what they're going to do. So I was open for anything at that time.
Speaking in terms of your knowledge base, I know you're a trainer and you bring all those decades and multiple countries that you worked into the table and doing your own training. But when you were broken into the business, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were trained by Afa and Sika. I'm just wondering if the process that you went through was as hard hitting as one would expect, or rather, to use the parlance, like old school training that separated some of the workers from previous eras with the more performance center cookie cutter approach of today.
Oh yeah, my dad he was rough. I mean, he was trained old school, and he kept that 100% even with his students. But he was rough on all of us because he wanted us to be great at what we did. If we're going to follow in his footsteps and pursue wrestling, then he wants the best out of us. So he didn't hold no punches with any of me and my brother, cousins, any of us. When we went out there, he laid it in. He made us work hard, and my uncle as well. So, it was something that was rough on us, but it paid off because all that old school training, look at how many superstars you got right now that are working for the company. And it's just the lineage and the training just keeps going on and on. And, we all train the same way. We have our own style. I say that, we can wrestle with anybody. I mean, but we have our own style as to how we wrestle. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can see that in every one of us that wrestle. There's something that's connecting us, and, the style that we have that knows that, how we were trained. Because I had somebody tell me that, and they say, "Oh, you guys kind of wrestle the same. You can tell you guys are family." Well, we got trained from the same person,
Mm-hmm. Are you reticent in your own when you're facilitating the training, given some of the complaints we've heard over the years about that laying it in, that realistic style? Does that give you a pause to consider when dealing with the I don't want to say kids of today, but the students of today?
Well, see, that's the problem. I think right now, a lot of the, there's a lot of guys in the wrestling business that really don't belong there. That's just my opinion, because they come in and they get trained, and all right, this guy that only wrestled for 10 years is training people, which I don't take that away from anybody. But if you want to get trained the right way, you want to, not just know how to train, to wrestle, to take bumps. You want to learn the whole in and out of the wrestling business. And to me, my dad always told people, and I tell people when I train them, if you're in here just for the spotlight and your heart is not in it, I don't want to see you. I don't want to deal with you, because, my heart and my passion is in this business. It has put food on the table for us when we were kids. It's put food on the table for my kids. So, I don't take the wrestling business as something where, oh, it's on TV. I go out there to do my job and do it correctly. And that's something that I like to pass on to a lot of these newcomers, because a lot of them, they go out there and they do so many things, and that they just want that real big pop from the people. That's fine, but there's no psychology no more in the wrestling. It's very little, and 90% of this business is our psychology about how you do your matches and what you're doing. And that's something that my dad pounded in all of our heads. But I just took it and I soaked it in, and I add a little bit of my psychology that I thought that would work out. And so far, people that I help, they actually see it and they understand it, and I'm glad that I can reach out to those, kids and the upcoming trainers workers that I help, that they understand that. And it makes it a lot easier to when they go up to the big, when they get called up to the big time WWE or AEW, that's a notch underneath their belt that they don't have to worry about when they're in the ring, because they'll see that they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, Lloyd, that there's something specific in the way that you and your family have trained, and you look back over the longevity of certain family members wrestling for a long, long time? You say yourself, you're still able to go if you need to go. What do you think that's down to? Do you think that's down to the way you were trained and the way you wrestle?
Both. I believe both, the way you're trained, and, I cherish my body. I didn't go out there. I did some crazy stuff when I was young, but I kept it to a limit. I made sure that my matches mean something, and it didn't mean how coming off the top rope, flipping outside. It meant more psychology in the ring, so that way you could save your body as well, and you could paint a story to the people, because that's what you're doing. You're painting a story to the people to understand this match. So whether you're a babyface or a heel, good guy, bad guy, they're going to know what you are. So, I mean, answering your question, yeah, it kept me going. I can still go because I didn't kill my body. I worked hard, but I still have good knees, good shoulders, so I can still go out there and do a match at any time.
We've on this program had the pleasure to talk to and interview quite a few of the Eastern Championship Wrestling originals, including Hitman Tony Stetson, DC Drake. We've got Johnny Hotbody coming up. Very excited about that. I know you worked there in 92 and 93, and I like to ask this question of the originals, in so much as when you're working Eastern Championship Wrestling, did you get the feeling that they were on to something there, so to speak?
Yeah, well, Todd Gordon was in charge of it, and actually I wrestled for Eastern Championship Wrestling before Todd Gordon had it as well. I did some shows for, I believe it was Joel Goodman that owned it, and then Todd Gordon took over, and me and Todd hit it off great. He made me one of his top heels, and I was working with them. So I consider myself, and I know I am, with the people that you just mentioned right now, working with them years ago before it became hardcore ECW. So I consider myself, an original, just like, the rest of those guys. You had Sandman that was there. You had Winters. There was a lot of us that were there. Stetson. I have a clip on I believe on my Instagram where I was wrestling Tony Stetson, and it was a long time ago. And those were good times. And then after a while, did what I did, worked with WWF, and then went overseas and did a lot of other things. And then back after we re-signed with WWE at that time, we ended up going and working with ECW with Paul Heyman.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. But when you did work for WWF, you did a lot of house show work in and around the same time frame, the '92 time frame, including some syndicated TV work. I know you had an actual World Tag Team title match against the Steiners when you were with Brooklyn Brawler there. Obviously, that was something that a lot of folks in the business aspire to. But how did those particular bookings occur?
Well, I remember very well. That's when my dad and my uncle and my cousins were actually signed. They just signed with WWF at that time, and I was young. I was only 17 years old, and I would be there with my dad. And all, of course, I was working already. I broke in at 1980. Ring time started in 1987. I actually started in 85. So, I was there. I was just hanging there, and I'll never forget it. My dad walked up to Chief Jerry Strongbow, God rest his soul, because him and Sergeant Slaughter were actually the ones in charge at that time. And he goes, "Hey, put my other boy to work." And the first thing Chief looked at him, he goes, "Oh, you damn Samoans could work. All right, let me see what I can do." So I didn't expect them to put me in a big main spot because I was young at that time. So they put me to work, and I did TV. And then I was actually on the road with no contract. I was traveling with my cousin Yoko and Mr. Fuji, then with Keish, so, I had the opportunity to be on the road. I would stay on the East Coast and do all the, the road shows. And I worked a lot, actually, with Marty Jannetty and X-Pac, 1, 2, 3. I was actually kind of married to them because we were on the road, and we'd wrestle, Boston Gardens, then Hartford, that little loop, and then you come down to PA, do Hershey, and then Philadelphia. So it was great to work with those guys, and I had the opportunity to work with a lot of great names. So I'm very honored that I had that opportunity to be on the road at a young age, and then be able to re-sign back in 90, I believe it was 98. Me and my cousin Matt Rosie, we signed together to start a new age Samoan type thing they wanted to do. And at that time, they had us on contract. We actually sat home. They wanted us to get in shape. They would actually fly us up to the office, work out in the office. They wanted us to really look different. And at that time, I told them, said, "Listen, if you want me to lose this weight and get in shape, send me down to Puerto Rico when I wrestled." So Bruce Pritchard called up Carlos Colon and said, "Hey, we'd like to send Lloyd down there." He goes, "Hey, he's welcome anytime." So I went down there, and I stayed for about 6 months. And in that 6-month time, I lost 100 pounds in 6 months. I was busting my butt every day, working, down there in Puerto Rico, plus in the gym every day. And when I came back, the office was amazed. It was like, "Wow, you lost quite a bit of weight." But, they would take us, and then they would put us on the road, and we would, go out to TV, and they would say, "All right, you're going to debut here." No, wait. So, it was a waiting game. And then finally, we just did some house shows. And then after that, after I think it was a year and a half, 2 years, they weren't doing anything. So they kind of like brushed us off and let us off our contract. And then that's when, after a while, Rosie went back with Umaga as a 3-minute warning, which I was supposed to go there, but I was a little bit upset at that time, and I didn't go to TV. And then they ended up being 3-minute warning, which I was very happy, because anytime you see your family in there, I'm happy for anybody. There's no, guilt trip or mad or anything. If anything, I was kind of upset with the office, but still, that was nothing to do with them getting hired. It was just, things that we should have done when we were on contract. But otherwise, I was happy for them, and they continued doing that. And then I went on to, work overseas and do a lot of overseas work with the Middle East. I was doing some producing with Qatar Pro Wrestling. Also, and I was in Austria and Germany. I was all over the world, Mm-hmm. So I was doing the USO tours with my brother Samu, and we started doing the head shrinkers, on the independent scenes and everything. So, I had quite a bit to do after that, and, I kept myself busy.
Did you ever have any interactions or conversations with Vince McMahon over the years?
No, actually, there was a thing where Vince would walk down the hallway, and I never really had a conversation with him. He would always go by me and say, "Hey, kid," and he would pat me on the shoulder, and continue to his office. I never really, spoke to him or went in his office. My dad was the one that would go and talk to him directly, or whoever he had to talk to. There would be a line outside waiting for people to get in his office to talk to him. And my dad, him and Vince had a great, relationship, and he would just walk right in there, and they'd have their meeting, whatever they had to do at TV. And I was like, wow, I was impressed. My dad that was just him. They had that relationship from working years ago. But yeah, I never really had a conversation with him. It was always hi and bye, and that was it. And everything that he wanted us to know, or everybody want to know, it would go through the agents.
Yeah, yeah. Who did you find from outside your family as the person that helped you the most in the business?
Besides anybody in my family, I have to say I had a great experience and learned a lot from Dutch Mantel. I was in Puerto Rico with him, and I learned quite a bit from him. He was, he lived with me. I had a condominium. He was there with me, and I got to spend time around him, and just to learn that different style, which is that old Memphis style that he had. And it was so different, and it was opportunity to me to learn. And he would just, pound stuff in my head and sit there at the table, and I just learned how he was doing, finishes and doing angles for Puerto Rico. And it was crazy. It was the place was sold out just from the things that he was doing. He was bringing that little bit of Memphis to Puerto Rico that people never saw, and it worked. So I learned a lot from him, and I have so much respect for him.
Before we leave Puerto Rico entirely, you had several runs there, successful runs, and some of the folks that we talked to tell, have positive and then some really negative experiences in Puerto Rico with the fans, crazy attacking fans and all that sort of stuff. So I had to ask you, man, if you had anything along those lines.
Oh my God! You opened up a different book. Yeah, I've had. I was warned. I was told. How Puerto Rico was when I went there, and at that time I was young. I was, I listened, but I was ready to go. And first day I got there, I called my dad back and I said, "Dad, I'm ready to come home." He goes, "No, just tough it out for 3 months. Your uncle was there. My Uncle Sika was there, so that kind of made me a little more comfortable. But when my Uncle Sika left, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So while he was there, I was, you hear stories about Invader, with him and Bruiser Brody. And I saw him at the office, and it was like, how you doing, sir? This and that. But, those visions stay in the back of your mind. You're like, all right, do you want to meet this guy? You don't know nothing about him. So, he was cool with me and no problems. And then I remember that one night I was supposed to be on third match, and they changed it. And they said, all right, you're working main event with Invader. I'm like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? I looked at my uncle, and he says, don't worry about it. I'm here. You're going to be okay. It's all right. Just go out there and do what you got to do. And I went out there and wrestled him, and, we had a great match. And from that point on, while I was in Puerto Rico, I worked so much with him, and there was times where I worked with him in his hometown. He was part of the office, and he booked me against him. So I had some great matches with him, and I had no problem with Invader at all. Otherwise, stories about the fans, I got a lot of stories about that. I got a scar on my arm, my left arm, where I got cut by an old man. He had a little knife, and he caught me because, over there they don't have ringside. Only time they have ringside is on big events. So I was wrestling Ray Gonzalez, and I went outside the ring, and here I am, and I'm getting up towards the barricades where the fans are. So I go over there. You just want to go out there and put that little extra out there, for the fans. And Ray Gonzalez is beating the crap out of me, and I'm on the barricade, and I feel something like burn on my arm, and the security guy reaches over me, and he grabs this guy, and I turn around. This old guy with a little knife, and I look at my arm, and it's bleeding. I'm like, what the heck? So I get back in the ring. We finish the match, and after the match, I went in the locker room, and I looked at it, and it wasn't deep, but it was deep enough where it was separated a little bit. So I went over there and I took some tape and I squeezed it together and put tape on it and left it alone, and that was it. But there's other times where we would actually get, mauled by the people. One of the worst times were when we were in a place called Alto, and Dutch Mantel had a program going on with this kid, Ray Gonzalez. And whoever won that match, which is Ray Gonzalez won that match, they had Dutch's manager up 15 feet in a cage. And if he won the match, he would get 5 minutes with him. So he beat Dutch Mantel, and then all of a sudden Dutch goes back to the locker room, and here comes the cage. And as soon as he goes to grab the guy, Dutch goes out there and puts the thing on his face, and the guy passes out. Well, the people went nuts. The place is jam-packed. Now it's our time to come out there and try to get this other wrestler that they turned babyface. He came out of nowhere. He wasn't allowed in the babyface locker room. He wasn't allowed in the heel locker room. So he came from outside dressed, and he came over there with a shoe, and he started wearing Dutch Mantel out. So that was our cue to go out there and try to break him up. He starts beating the crap out of us. Dutch goes back, never makes it back to the locker room. Fans grabbed his legs. He fell. They kicked him. They split his eye wide open. The security guards jumped on top of him, got him in there. Here's Glenn Jacobs, Kane. He was there at that time. He's putting his feet up against the door, but we're stuck at the middle of the ring. Me and my partner and our manager, we have nowhere to go. They won't let us in the locker room. They closed it off. We can't go outside. There's fans outside. So we were actually in the middle of the ring for about 45 minutes. Get in the locker room. And then when we got time, when the security guard goes, let's go now, because they started separating. Well, they saw us running. They came back, and we got beat. I was throwing left, right, just to try to get in the locker room. They were hitting us in the head. They were throwing bottles. I mean, you name it, they were throwing it at us. And as soon as we got to the door, can't open the door. I'm like, what the hell? Here's Glenn Jacobs. At this time, he's already got his feet against the door. He didn't know it was us. I'm banging on the door. Open the door. Finally, he opens the door. We get inside, and he had to go, put his legs back on the door. They were trying to, break the door down. We couldn't get out of that locker room until the police came. And then they had the riot squad out there. There was about 35 cops out there, and we had to get Dutch to the hospital. So therefore, we had to follow the police cars down the street a different way so they wouldn't throw anything at our cars to get Dutch to the hospital. So that was one of the worst times that, we had over there. There was a lot of other times, but that was a crazy time.
Wow, they really believe there, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got a gun pulled out on me in the outside of the locker, outside of the arena. So, there's a lot of things that happen, but you know what? All that went down and all the stuff that I've been through over there, Puerto Rico was one of the best territories that I worked in, and that's why I continue going back there, because their energy, the people, it's just that it gives you that adrenaline where you just want to go out there, you want to wrestle. And I love Puerto Rico. Carlos Colon, I love him to death. His family, Carlitos, Epico, the whole family. I know them since they were young, before they were wrestling. And, to see them in the business now and where they're at now, I'm just proud of them. I call them my little brothers, because I truly think they are, because they've been around them basically all their life.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's definitely going to make an interesting YouTube clip, don't you think?
I guess so, yeah.
But you can tell by the way you talked about it, like you're like, you have a smile on your face, like you absorb these memories to bring you to where you are now, and that's why we were talking earlier about all the experience you have. So here's a random question. How did you end up in The Wrestler, the movie?
Wow. That's a good one, because actually my dad, they got in touch, the director got in touch with my dad, and they needed somebody to train the main person that was going to be in that movie. See, a lot of people don't know, but at that time, it wasn't Mickey Rourke. It was actually Nicolas Cage. And my dad started training Nicolas Cage in the beginning. And then for some reason, I guess they wanted, because he was actually, I was told that he was putting money into the movie. But then when they offered him to do National Treasure 2, he pulled out and went to do that. So therefore, the director was like, who are we going to get? Finally, they got Mickey Rourke. They gave him the opportunity. And I think, Mickey Rourke should have been the first choice because he did an outrageous job. My dad trained him. I had an opportunity to train him a few times, and Mickey Rourke was so good in the ring. I mean, I couldn't see anybody else playing that role besides him. So therefore, how I got involved in it by doing that. The director wanted us to be in the movie, and we actually did a match for the movie, and they edited that one out. They can only put so much in there, but the locker room scene, we were involved in, and just helping with the wrestling and choreographing the matches. I had a lot to do with that as well. So, but I give my dad all the credit because he was the one that had the opportunity to train Mickey Rourke, and he did a great job. I mean, for him to pull it off like that, he had to get trained right, and my dad did an awesome job.
Great.
Being a big fan of the original ECW, I had to ask you about your shots that you did there in 96, 97 as part of the Samoan Gangster Party. How that run was for you? Memories of that crazy locker room that we hear about so much, and any interactions with Mr. Heyman?
Paul Heyman was, I say, he's like Vince McMahon. I don't want to put anybody down, but Paul Heyman is probably one of the second smartest men in this business. Besides, I give credit to Vince McMahon because let's put it together. I mean, WWE wouldn't be the way it is if he didn't create it, and now it's went to a different level. But Paul Heyman has, he's just amazing. And with ECW, he would come up with ideas. And, sometimes if you came up with your own idea, if you liked it, go for it. But his mentality for the business is just incredible. Working for him was, he's worked all our family for many years. And getting the opportunity to work with him is just great. And still to this day, I can text him and, say, hey, I tell him Talofa and Samoan there, or call him, hey, how you doing, wise man? He'll text me right back. And he's just great, man. I love Paul. People see him differently, probably a lot of people do, but Paul is, I just can't describe it. His mind is impeccable. I mean, for the business, he's unbelievable. And for ECW, it was great to work for him. We had a lot of great matches. We actually debuted in our hometown when we were living in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And we started off with the Dudleys. And then, my brother and Matt did a program with them. And then I came in as a third one. And then me and Matt did a lot of matches with Gangsters and Perry Saturn and, stuff like that. But we did a lot with the Gangsters. We did a whole big program with them, and New Jack was he was something to wrestle. A lot of people were scared of him, but it was more like he tried to be rough with us, but we were rough right back with him. So he respected that, and we had a great relationship, and we had some good ones. We got me and him got us. Paul got mad at us because we got kicked out of a building in Reading, Pennsylvania, because we were fighting outside, and I hit him so hard he went right to a wall. And I tell the story a lot because it's the truth. He went through the wall, and next thing you know, me looking and, fans are, yelling ECW. So I said, I'm going to go on this wall and get him. And I went through the wall and made it bigger. And we come out fighting. And next thing you know, we go in the locker room, and then Paul's like yelling, great, now we can't go and we can't come back here. We get kicked out of the building. And I'm like, sorry, everybody's apologizing. But at the same time, we're like, what the hell? It's wrestling. It's ECW, So, I had great memories too working with ECW. We had a great time, and like I said, all this stuff, of my career, the things that happened, I would say I would do it all over again. Even though it was some bad times and crazy times, but I would do it all over again.
Speaking of Paul, how influential do you think Paul is to Roman's character currently on TV?
Well, I mean, Roman is himself. He brings a lot to the table. He brings all of it to the table. And by Paul Heyman being by his side, it just kicks it up another notch. He's he's on the mic. He's crazy. He's unbelievable. His mic skills, he's in his psychology of the business is just unbelievable. So that mixture with Roman and Paul, and the whole bloodline, man, it's that storyline I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, you see, obviously, The Rock is the biggest superstar in the world, basically across the board. And then you look at Roman is on the rise. Like, where do you think Roman's ceiling is, like, in terms of looking at a guy like The Rock, that's the biggest superstar on the planet? Do you think Roman can reach those levels?
Yeah, I mean, if not, I'm not saying he's there right now, but he is definitely close. I mean, he is a name. I mean, he might as well say he's a legend right now. For everything that he's done. Holding he's beating records, holding heavyweight championship belt, and all the things that he's been doing. So yeah, I see him doing movies and just being a legend, and I know for a fact he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. That's not going to be even a question.
Well, Lloyd, I know we've almost hit the end of the allotted time frame, but I have a two-part question for you to
Sure, go ahead.
One part A being, in your opinion, who is the true head of the table in the bloodline? Would that be The Rock or would it be Roman? And does that match need to happen in order to establish that? And secondly, you spoke of the Hall of Fame. How much would it mean for you to get an induction in the Hall of Fame, sir?
I'll answer that first. I wouldn't see anything. I would be honored, but I wouldn't see myself getting the Hall of Fame because I didn't have that biggest name that, for WWE, like my family did, so, but it would, you never know with them, they put, like, for example, they put movie stars in there, in the Hall of Fame. So, with WWE, you never know. If it ever happened, it would be a true honor, and not only for WWE, but for my family. But on the other question, who's the true head of the table between The Rock and Roman and the match? Yeah, I would like to see it happen. It's been built up for so long, and the people want to see it. And then, of course, when Cody came in, then it drew to him, and it drew them to now Cody and Roman, and that's where they're at right now. But the true head of the table, I would say, is not either one of them. I would say my dad, because without him, none of us would be in this wrestling business. So he is the true head of the table, and the respect and the honor goes to him for putting us in the wrestling business, and my Uncle Sika as well. For without them, we wouldn't be here, and it's actually, I get emotional about it because my dad's getting older, and he's done so much in this wrestling business and for everybody, and I just praise him, and he's my hero.
That's a great answer. You could say that they created the table.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Lloyd, where can the fans keep up with you on social media, and do you have anything in particular to put out there to the fans that they should be aware of that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, they can catch me. I'm on all social medias. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, which is that new name for it's called X, I guess. I'm on all that. They can catch me on with my name, Lloyd Anoa'i, or Great Alofa, LA Smooth. I'm pretty sure it's easy to find. And also, too, I have some upcoming events coming up, which at WrestleMania, WrestleCon, I'll be there all 3 days in Philadelphia. And also, I have a Legends Fest in St. Louis, Missouri, I'll be at, where there'll be a lot of, legends there, Ron Simmons, so many of them. I think Stan Hansen will be there, and I have the opportunity to be part of that. And got some other stuff coming up. I'm working on some movie roles I've been doing, trying to get on, and hopefully, just continue trying to, get that producer job with WWE. Hopefully that falls through. If not, it's not made to be. But that was something that I'll continue pursuing, and hopefully can be there and go from there.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time today and sharing a bit of the vast knowledge that you have for the industry, and you'd be most definitely a very welcome addition to that organization that needs more wrestling people, in my opinion, involved in the company. So thanks, Lloyd, for coming on tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much, and it's an honor to be on your show. And let's hook up sometime and let's do it again.
Absolutely, we greatly appreciate it. So, fans, that's it for this particular edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. Be sure, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel, and you'll stay on top of all the great content such as this that we have coming this year. But until then, thanks for viewing, and see you next time.